What's up everyone? In this video, we're going to go over when you should use Payload CMS. Now, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I'll be releasing a lot of content around Payload CMS and nextjs and other things, but for now, let's dive in. You should use Payload CMS whenever you need a headless CMS. This is particularly true when you're using Next.js. There are other options of headless CMSs, and you can use Payload CMS in other environments outside of Next.js, but the experience is much more seamless when using Next.js and Payload CMS together. You should also consider using Payload CMS if you need a customizable and flexible e-commerce platform. Off-the-shelf solutions are typically rigid and don't allow you to extend the functionality of the platform, at least not as well as Payload CMS does. Payload CMS is also great for building websites with blogs or other content-heavy sections. From small blogs to full enterprise-level websites with multiple sections of resources, Payload CMS makes it easy to serve content across use cases. It's easy to create new collections on the back end to then render on the front end of the site. Since Next.js can be used as a static site generator as well, anytime you need SSG is a perfect time to use Payload CMS. The same is true for when you want to use on-demand revalidation, or ODR, with incremental static regeneration, ISR. Payload CMS makes it easy to use hooks to automatically trigger cached refreshes to your content. One last reason to use Payload CMS, the local API. This makes it very easy to communicate with your backend from the front end. The local API is an intuitive way to query your backend with exactly what you want. With Payload CMS, the local API is typed as well, so your IDE should be able to assist you in querying the backend with ease. In fact, the main reason I found Payload CMS is that it's one of the only headless CMSs I've found that provides flexibility in how you query data. There are some that require that you use GraphQL, which I don't like, and there are others that require REST, which I prefer, but I know others don't like. But Payload is the first I've seen that lets you choose between GraphQL, REST, and their own method. Now, when shouldn't you use Payload CMS? The first reason you shouldn't use Payload CMS is obvious. Don't use it if you don't need a CMS. If you're building a site that doesn't require content management like a brochure site in some cases, or a single landing page, it may be overkill to use Payload CMS. That would be true for every CMS though. CMSs do add a layer of complexity to any project, so if you're looking to get started quickly or don't need a fully featured solution, it's best just to build the site without using a CMS. The second reason you shouldn't use Payload CMS is if you don't have time or ability to extend the functionality of the platform. We'll be going over how to do that in a series of videos that I'll be doing, but while Payload CMS does include some templates that allow you to build from them, off-the-shelf platforms can be easier to get up and running right away. Payload CMS requires configuration that is best suited for developers to work through. If you or your team are strapped for developer resources, or you don't want to learn a new platform, or you don't have the ability to learn a new platform right now, it could be better to just pay for an off-the-shelf solution. One other reason to avoid Payload CMS is if you don't want to use TypeScript. While you don't need to use TypeScript on your front end, Payload CMS is built with TypeScript and works best when you consume the information with TypeScript. That said, if you're learning or want to learn TypeScript, Payload CMS is the perfect avenue for that. Now, that's it for when to use Payload CMS or when not to use it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you have other use cases where it doesn't really make sense to use Payload CMS, I would be happy to hear about that and even discuss it in a future video. There aren't many reasons to not use Payload CMS in my opinion, but it isn't right for everyone. Be sure you have the time, the skill, and the energy to learn how to use it. And once you learn how to use it, it becomes very simple to use and almost infinitely extensible. Now, be sure to subscribe to this channel and get notifications to make sure you're updated on all the content I'll be putting out about Payload CMS. See you next time.